I never wanted to go, but Camille gave me that look, the kind that doesn't ask, beg, or plead. It's just an expectation, quiet but heavy. And somehow, those unspoken demands, the ones that don't require a word, always seem to dig the deepest. That's how I found myself driving through Durham, past the familiar brick storefronts and the towering university clock, heading towards an event I had no intention of attending, Camille's family reunion. But this wasn't just any reunion, not by a long shot. Her mother, Judith, liked to call it that, but in reality, it was more of a grand spectacle. Every year, it played out like a well-rehearsed show, each person in the family assigned a part to play. The real star of the show this time was Ivy, Camille's younger sister, the new golden child thanks to her recent Harvard graduation. And as always, the family gathered for the obligatory speeches, the cake, and Uncle Ruben's never-ending anecdotes about how hard work always pays off, never missing a chance to remind everyone of their place. Of course, there would be the camera flashes too, capturing every moment, every fabricated smile. I glanced at Camille sitting beside me in the passenger seat. She could probably recite the entire script from memory by now. Her stillness was deliberate, nothing cold about it, just well practiced. She adjusted her earring, glanced briefly into the visor mirror, and surveyed herself with a careful eye. She told me that morning she didn't want a scene. She wasn't upset that I didn't want to come. She just wanted me to show up, be polite, and stay out of the way. What I didn't tell her was that each time I set foot in her family's home, I felt like I was wearing someone else's clothes, too tight, uncomfortable, and definitely not my own. It wasn't just the people or the event, it was the weight of it all. It was the roles they expected us to play. By the time we pulled up to Ruben's mansion in Raleigh, the sun had already climbed too high, and the heat hit me like a brick wall. SUVs filled the driveway and balloon arches, pink, gold, and white, greeted us like some over-the-top entrance. Ivy's success was celebrated, and the welcome sign, embroidered with "Kudos Ivy" in fancy lettering, tried a little too hard to make a statement. I stepped out of the car, immediately feeling underdressed despite Camille adjusting my collar and offering her reassuring smile, though it wasn't really aimed at me, more through me. "You look fine," she said. "Let's just get through this." So I followed her, trailing behind as we made our way through the performance that was her family reunion. The laughter on Ruben's lawn felt too loud, too eager, as if everyone was trying to fill the space with noise. The lawn chairs were arranged in neat rows, almost like a red carpet event, and the air smelled of grilled meat, mingling with the overpowering scent of expensive perfume. Floating lanterns drifted lazily in the pool, and strangers I barely knew flashed bright smiles at Camille, offering me nothing more than polite nods as if I were just a plus one, as if I hadn't been married to her for 7 years. Ruben waved enthusiastically from across the yard, while Judith stood near the grill, dressed in a beige suit that made her look like a keynote speaker at a corporate summit. When our eyes met, I thought for a second she might offer me something genuine, maybe even warm. But as soon as Camille wrapped her arms around her mother in a hug, Judith's smile vanished, replaced by a sharp, almost imperceptible sneer. I stayed back, finding a quiet corner near the hydrangeas, hoping to be invisible. I poured myself a flat Coke and watched as Ivy held court on the patio, now far removed from the awkward girl I used to know. She wore a Harvard sweatshirt and a perfectly polished manicure, surrounded by admirers who hung on every word. No one noticed us arrive. Camille came to join me briefly, whispering a quiet, "Thanks for coming." I nodded but didn't say anything. "Don't thank me yet," I murmured back, trying to hide the frustration. She chuckled softly. "Just keep breathing," she said. So I did, watching, listening, staying quiet. All the while, I couldn't stop thinking about how I had worked so many different jobs to pay for school, how I had spent sleepless nights working construction while keeping my head down, learning that some people only look up when they want to judge or criticize. Judith was one of those people. Even when the applause was for others, her barbs always found their mark. During the toast, when she raised her glass and proudly announced, "We're so proud of Ivy." She always aimed high. I could feel the weight of her words, the implication of comparison. And then, loud enough for everyone to hear, she added, "Some people's husbands are high school dropouts." The table erupted in laughter, not all at once but just enough to make the point clear. Camille's fingers tightened around her wine glass, her knuckles white. I could feel the tension in the air, but I didn't react. I didn't laugh, didn't cringe, didn't stay silent. Something inside me shifted. I smiled instead, a quiet defiance that I didn't have the words to explain. The smile lingered in a way that was almost unsettling, the kind that stuck around for hours, heavy and unshakable. I wanted to leave, but something about the silence was different today. It wasn't just the stillness that I brought, it was something else, something more. Uncle Ruben's backyard looked like it belonged in a high-end catalog, not the kind that was mass-produced but the curated, expensive kind where each light fixture probably cost more than my paycheck. The patio lamps were placed just so, casting their soft glow over a scene that seemed too perfect. Jazz music hummed in the background, loud enough to be pretentious but not intrusive, blending in like a smooth layer of paint. I lingered at the edge, holding a glass of lemonade that was too sweet, too artificial, like everything else here. Camille moved through the crowd with effortless grace, her smile constant, her laughter flowing, her presence molded perfectly for the occasion. I never quite learned how to blend in like that, how to be part of the fabric. From my corner, I watched Judith at the head table, a picture of flawless perfection. Her hair styled to precision, her posture regal. She looked like she'd stepped off the set of a coming-of-age movie, a purple pantsuit draped over her, a wine glass held firmly in one hand as if it were a gavel. Next to her sat Ivy, her sweater from Harvard an emblem of her Ivy League upbringing, posture straight, every move deliberate. Camille passed by with a tray full of skewered shrimp and champagne-soaked sponge, and Judith took one without even a glance of thanks, her eyes still fixed on something else, like she was too busy to care. I grabbed a couple of pastries from a passing waiter, mostly out of hunger but also because I needed something to hold on to. Just as I bit into one, Judith's voice sliced through the chatter, cutting the air with her sharpness. Some people's husbands are high school dropouts. There it was. Camille froze, her eyes wide, her fists clenched. The atmosphere shifted, not violently but enough for people to notice. I couldn't help it, I smiled again like I was adding another stone to my pocket. No, not today. I stood slowly, taking a step forward. I could feel the eyes of everyone on me, waiting. Ivy blinked at me, unsure whether I was going to offer praise or push back. I didn't take her hand, not yet, because I wasn't here for applause. In a steady voice I began, each word landing precisely where it needed to. I dropped out of high school. Earned my GED by 17. Worked full-time in construction to pay for night school. Graduated with honors from community college. Got a shot at Duke. Earned my master's. Now I'm on a PhD track. The words rang out, one after another, breaking the quiet tension. Silence fell, heavy and full, as if the air itself was holding its breath. I didn't marry Camille for appearances, I added, keeping my tone calm, unwavering. And she didn't settle. She chose me because I never needed a stage. Judith gaped, the wine glass in her hand forgotten. Ivy blinked, unsure how to respond. Camille's eyes met mine, softened, a fleeting moment of understanding passing between us. I took a deep breath and let it out, not for effect but because it felt right. No grand gesture. No raised voice. Just truth. It's funny, I thought to myself, how truth can fall like ash. And as the words settled in the stillness of that perfect lawn, I took one last sip of the overly sweet lemonade and smiled again, a quiet satisfaction blooming in me. I didn't give her anything. Not really. I glanced at Judith once more. And perhaps this was what all the applause had been for, the brand names, the appearances, the polished perfection. It wasn't any of those things. It was about showing up. About facing challenges. About showing people what it meant to struggle, to survive, to rise. Maybe Camille's hand found mine then. I wasn't sure if it was fear or thankfulness, but I didn't pull away. I was the anchor in a storm, and for once I wasn't going anywhere. Are you finally? Judith began, her voice delicate, a little shaky, but still maintaining that calm, regal exterior. She looked smaller now, almost human in a way that hadn't been there before. Her armor had loosened. I nodded. No words needed. It wasn't a victory. It was simply the truth. And just like that, the sound began to return. The conversations picked up again, quiet and hesitant at first, but they resumed. Judith left first, retreating to a private area, her movements stiff. Camille followed her, whispering something I didn't quite catch. I remained by the hydrangeas, standing silently, my mind reeling. You could have told me, Camille said quietly, her voice almost too soft to hear, as if the air between us had shifted in some irreversible way. The words felt too heavy to say aloud, but there they were, finally spilling out after all this time. I nodded, but not accusingly. There was no anger in it, just exhaustion. I could have, I said. But it wasn't about me. It wasn't about us. I paused, trying to explain something I didn't fully understand myself. It was about her. About Judith discovering who she is. Camille turned to face me, her eyes searching mine. Judith sat on the balcony now, arms crossed, jaw tight. She didn't speak, but in that moment, it was like everything had been said. This was progress, not the kind that came with applause, but the kind that happened in silence. We stood there for a while, the two of us, watching the lanterns flicker as the light dipped below the tree line. Ivy, I imagined, was still trying to figure out what had just happened. Maybe she would understand it eventually. Maybe she'd hate me for it. Nobody knew what I did. Nobody cared. All they knew was that I was the guy Camille married, the quiet one who didn't quite fit in, who didn't know the difference between a centerpiece vase and a wine decanter. But I wasn't here for any of that. I wasn't here to win a battle or lose one. When we got home, Camille sat in the passenger seat, silent, like she'd seen a ghost. We didn't argue. She just twisted the ring on her finger, a nervous habit she always had when her thoughts were louder than her words. We didn't debrief. The silence that had settled over us after the night felt complete, satisfying. The next morning it was like nothing had changed. But everything had.